Hey Chief Marshal AP Singh, Hey Chief Marshal Bhaduria sir, Miss Tarini, my friend Manjeet Negi, all uniformed fraternity, and of course, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor to be here. Last year, self and AP was sitting amongst the audience and relishing the great celebration of the similar kind. So we both decided to be here today to have a good reminiscence of that. As we see here that it's a mixed crowd, so that tells us that how General Rawat had his reach. It's a cross spectrum of the society, what I see here. So it's a great feeling, and so I will keep my talk limited to the strategic level and not bring it down to the, if I can say that, the military level, because that is what is the zone of comfort normally an army officer has. So I'll try and keep or float above that. As you are aware that when General Rawat was the chief, I was the DG Infantry, and when he was CDS, I was the deputy chief at that point of time, what appointment Rakesh Kapoor is holding today, who is amongst us. And of course, Mrs. Rawat used to always call Sunita, ye to hamari jagah ki hai, because they both share the same province of MP, and they had that unwritten understanding or kind of a mutual respect for each other. So with that, I will begin with my talk, though I was given 30 minutes, but I'll keep it short and try and make it as lucrative or lucid to the audience here, because the subject is changing paradigms in emerging global security scenario. And it is a never-ending subject. You can have a 7-day seminar on that. So just fitting it into 30 minutes is one of the most difficult challenge which I have. So now coming on to General Bipin Rawat, who was a scholar soldier and a military reformer, who had an exceptional ability to envision future, a thought leader, an upright yet minimalist persona, whose leadership style endeared him not only to the Indian Army, but to the entire nation. And I am reminded of what NSA said last year during the similar talk. He said he was the only one who could take decisions. And that's what is the biggest quality everybody talks about. And during my interactions also, I found that he never deterred from taking decisions. And he could always come out with various options. You say, okay, now analyze 3, 4, and come back to me. That is the quality very few have when we do not have the complete information. And again, recalling Colin Powell, who used to say that if I have approximately 60 to 70% of information, a strategic leader should be able to take the decision. And I think if I have to look at India, I don't find anyone other than him who could take this kind of a risk and come out with a very plausible and workable solution. So, as we reflect on his legacy, it's both a privilege and an honor for me to share my thoughts with these scholars and practitioners of national security on the subject which I have just mentioned. I'm sanguine that the audience here is well-read, and any attempt to speak at length about this topic could trigger a sense of déjà vu in most of you. So, this vast canvas, I will select only on the few selected issues. So, if you take at the word environment scan, in 1992, after the fall of Berlin Wall and collapse of Soviet Union, Fukuyama of USA, if you all remember, had written a book which first part said end of history. Since then, the world has actually gone into the turmoil, if you see. It's been facing new challenges led to fall of regimes from Iraq, Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, as late as yesterday means, not yesterday means yesteryears, Bangladesh, and many more. The security paradigm has been like shifting sands, where high tide and low tides cannot be predicted. And thus the auspicious time to go for sail, you just can't decide. Besides, the storm and calmness of oceans are not giving any battle indicators. So the idealists are becoming realists and vice versa. Part-time friendship is new emerging phenomena, as also referred to as by friends by compulsion. There are nations with duality in approach, wherein sometimes form of governance is an issue for them, and in other case, economic compulsion or convenience override the same logic for a different nation. The duration of elected government or fall of an elected leader is changing the entire approach of a nation. We see what's happening in US, Canada, Bangladesh. Today, as we usher into 2025, the world is just cooling down from two major conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza, wherein majority nations have taken sides, few based on realism, few based on idealism, and selected few on religion. The turmoil is also interspersed with a number of ongoing sub-national conflicts and certain common threats to global peace, which is increasingly challenged by terrorism, radicalization, mass cyber attacks, and a subtle shift from democracy to authoritarianism. Now, if we look at friction points visible on the horizon, we find China challenging the established rules-based system, exemplified by its Belt and Road Initiative investment across Asia, Africa, and Europe. United States responding by reinforcing alliances like AUKUS and Quad and promoting a free Indo-Pacific. Europe navigating a delicate path, striving to maintain its principle of human rights while engaging with China and the US concurrently, but they are not sure how to deal with Russia now. Africa, rising its nation, pursue investment from both the blocs, and the global South increasingly voicing its demand for a multipolar world that reflects diverse interests. Now, the regional groupings are also testing waters. NATO is looking at creeping forward to test Russia's red lines, whereas China is enhancing its elbow space against pressures visualized from the groups of Quad, AUKUS, US agreement with Japan, South Korea, and Philippines. China has enhanced its signaling by carrying out ship fire practice between Australia and New Zealand maritime space, as also showed presence with economic prowess in South Pacific. In this power struggle, quietly North Korea has continued to grow militarily stronger. Even the global commons, there's oceans, outer space, cyberspace, and the atmosphere, are under risk due to same geopolitical rivalry. Melting Arctic ice has fueled competition over resource exploitation and navigation rights. Similarly, illegal fishing by distant water fleets, especially of China, while technically in international waters, depletes marine stocks. The increased militarization of space, again led by China, increases orbital debris risk. Cyberspace faces growing cyber attacks, as in ransomware strikes on critical infrastructure, including India and US, if you remember the colonial pipeline of 2021. So now, as regards causal loops, cyber warfare and misinformation undermine trust, while economic disparities and resource competition drive unrest and migration. Similarly, climate change worsens conflict over resources, and gray zone warfare, blending conventional, irregular, and cyber tactics, creates complex security challenges. Now, tackling these threats requires global cooperation, resilience, and adaptive strategic security strategies. Now, with this democratic shift and resource control race, we need to look at possibilities of rimland theory of Spikeman and heartland theory of Mackinder getting replaced with the Arctic land water region and Africa as the future power centers or region of struggle. As I have told you earlier also, the demography is slightly shifting from Asia to Africa. However, position of India will still remain pivotal due to its geography, demography, democracy, prosperity, soft power, and inclusive approach. So, here that I wish to look at how India is poised in this emerging world order. Now, India, despite being the largest population, largest democracy, seventh largest landmass, and having a geostrategic location, continues to remain at a relatively lower global standing. Our quest for a greater statutory say in the UN has not found favor, been repeatedly blocked, leaving us with little ability to directly shape key international decisions. Additionally, even BRICS has faced setbacks and is struggling to maintain its coherence, while diverging interests and internal political tensions within BRICS have resulted in limited tangible outcomes. Its purported attempt to upend the mighty US dollar has invited an open pushback from the Trump administration. In light of the same, we need to closely watch SCO2. Now, even India's efforts in promoting South-South cooperation have not resulted in outcomes that we would have liked to see. Probably, vested interests from global powers undermine the South-South dialogue by exploiting divisions within the global South. Additionally, the rise of China as a dominant economic and strategic force also adds complexity, creates competitions, and hampers India's effort to be natural lead for global South. And why are we finding ourselves in there, yet not there? Probably a small peek into our history will give some answers. Looking back up to the 90s, we can safely divide India's global interactions into three distinct phases. Safeguarding strategic autonomy for a decade, that is 91 to 98, in the post-Cold War era. Then acting as a balancing power, involving engagement with global powers and asserting regionally, maybe up to 2014, and then shifting to an era aimed at safeguarding key interests. What was once the policy of non-alignment has now evolved into a strategy of multi-alignment. India's international posture is now more dynamic and assertive, acknowledging not only its growing capabilities but also the expectations the world has of it. A critical moment in India's foreign policy came in 2015 when Foreign Secretary Jaishankar declared that India aspired to be a leading power rather than merely a balancing power. While India has been maintaining a fine balance between constructivism and realism and has even made strategic realignments like joining the Quad, the mood fact is that we are probably being subject to tokenism in reciprocation. Is there a case in point for us to look at assertive strategic autonomy in response, also at times referred to as strategic hedging? Do the actions like import of Russian oil, sale of weapons to selected countries which may impact military power balance in those regions, assertion on expectations from a good neighbor, are these pointing towards that? However, why are many of our efforts not reaching full fruition? When I look at answers to the questions, my first understanding is that, and it's always open to debate, probably we need to be even better than what we have already become. As Paul Coelho said in The Alchemist, when we strive to become better than we are, everything around us becomes better too. So the same sentiment is amply echoed in the Honorable Prime Minister's clarion call for Viksit Bharat 2047. Herein lies an opportunity for us to seek our rightful place in the emerging global security scenario. While the nation works along multiple lines of effort, we need to be mindful that in the security vertical, it is very easy to be drawn to the Thucydides trap. Globally escalating military budgets and global defense spending have surged to an all-time high of $2.4 trillion in 2023 as per CIPRI, which is more than the cumulative budget of UN for Sustainable Development Goals, that is SDG. Can we, as a nation with compelling requirements in the social sector, really afford to be drawn into this trap? At the same time, can we overlook the fact that we live in an extremely volatile neighborhood? As General Rawat said, when you have unsettled borders on north and your west, you don't know which side the battle will commence and where it will end. So you should be prepared for both fronts. And today, the near absolute collusivity has further compounded the threat. So, while looking for strategic guidance or solutions in the military field, my thoughts naturally gravitate towards General Rawat, what he professed, whether it comes to thinking differently or some may say disruptively, seeking enhanced risk appetite, visualizing value of military-civil fusion, fostering a robust defense industry, or embracing technology. So I feel satisfied and probably validated that the schema that we have embarked on is in spirit akin to what General Rawat strived for during his service. And I'll briefly talk about the strategic guidance which the Army is working on today, but only at the peripheral level. We are following the dictum. When it comes to security, doing more and doing better is no longer enough. We need to do things differently, and that means thinking differently. Enhancing security today requires reimagining it. We understand that security is about wholesome capability to wage war and deter war. Talking about deterrence, let me put it up front that it is time T deterrence we are talking about and not military deterrence alone. That means diplomacy, information, military, economic, and the new word which I continue to add is the technology. Towards that end, healthy military-civil fusion, of course, Atmanirbhar defense industrial base, dual-use assets at national level, well-informed and empowered decision-makers of DIME framework, inclusive approach for citizen warriors play a pivotal role. Bilateral engagements by India has already given good dividends, including way ahead for defense diplomacy and cooperation. Now, to further add to the traditional deterrence, I believe that probably technology prowess has become the new currency of deterrence. Data has become the new capital of trade and security. Therefore, modern deterrence capabilities with centrality of data management, preservation, and exchange must be multi-domain, integrating conventional strength with cyber, space, AI, and cognitive warfare. So a resilient defense industrial base and adaptive defense architecture will ensure deterrence remains credible in an unpredictable security landscape. And this is what encompasses our framework document referred to as Decade of Transformation 2032, SETU. So now, if I visualize that had General Rawat been here and he was required to give us some kind of a guidelines or the envisaged role of India in the emerging security paradigm with centrality of security forces. So I've just imagined what he would have said and tried to reproduce that, knowing him, whatever I knew of. So he always said moral high ground, Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. So anti-colonial ally, as seen in case of Mauritius, UK, Chagos archipelago discussion. Champion multi-world order, bandwagoning of nations help in preventing conflict. Thus be part of all framework including SCO, BRICS, Quad, BIMSTEC, Indian Ocean Regional Association, etc., alliances. Reform UN Security Council, you all are well aware, to include Global South representatives. Play an active role in conflict resolution as a negotiator or a mediator, whether it's Ukraine or even Myanmar. Play an active role in harness positive strength of Indian diaspora the world over for causes of humanity. Share common platform for global commons. There is the freedom to use and emerging new non-traditional threats such as climate change, economic migration, etc. Second, be enabler for emergence of global south. Post successful sharing of COVID vaccine with have-nots. Be the leader in sharing, again with the have-nots, digital resources for better socio-economic development. Be the lead in peacekeeping operations by virtue of these deployment are mostly in the global south. Now, centrality of military and security. We are the guarantors of national sovereignty as only nation standing strong against 2.5 front threat and also engaging the neighbors with domestic volatility. Responsible military of a nuclear nation advocate nuclear weapons as a political asset only, that is for deterrence purposes, till as long as possible. Lead GWAT, that is Global War on Terrorism, by virtue of facing it first hand in 3 regions of Jammu Kashmir, Northeast, and left-wing extremism. Close cooperation on issues related to inter-exchange, cyber warfare, electronic warfare, and weaponization of space. So, as I conclude, I am constantly reminded of General Rawat's advice, which said, there is a difference between talk and action. One should only believe in talks when they see action happening on ground. And that's what is the roadmap which has been laid out for the Indian Army. We are endlessly striving to make a difference on ground. I would like to assure you that Indian Army remains aligned and integrated with the national vision and objectives, will surely be self-reliant and future-ready army, which will contribute meaningfully to the aspirations, goals, and objectives of a rising India as a net security provider to global security. I once again thank General Bipin Rawat Memorial Foundation of India for giving me this stage, and to all of you for patient hearing while I do deliver talks at various platforms. This platform is unique with the towering aura of General Rawat's silent presence. It is always special and sacred. And here I must confess candidly that he, besides being my mentor, trusted me blindly to the extent that he even signed open-ended notings whenever I went to him. So on this solemn occasion, my salute and tributes to General Bipin Rawat, Ms. Madhulika Rawat, Brigadier Leader, Colonel Harjinder, the Indian Air Force pilots and the commandos who were part of the tragic accident when we lost him. Their memory is forever etched in our hearts. May their souls rest in peace. Jai Hind. Thank you.